Okay, I feel like this has been the elephant in the therapy room for quite some time now, but I'm just going to share what I've been researching for the last little while. I really think that our immigrant parents have a lot of narcissistic tendencies. I know. In social media world, narcissists are the big boogeyman. They're the scary monster. But narcissism is born out of emotional neglect. What did most of our parents endure? What were most of our grandparents like to our parents? They were not exactly emotionally nourishing. They weren't nurturing them. They weren't supportive. They weren't pouring into them. There was no gentle parenting going on. Let's just say that. So when you have a child grow up really emotionally starved, they've got a hunger for validation and connection and safety and belonging and purpose. Their self esteem development just didn't have the right ingredients. It wasn't available. There was too much going on. There was war, there was partition, there was scarcity, there was so much struggle and hardship that grandparents' generation was very survival focused. Parents' generation had a lot of survival focus. And now here we are going, hey, what the heck? What gives? What is the reason that our parents just can't be validating and kind and compassionate and patient and understanding? Well, the simplest answer is often the correct one. So let's just read about here just for a second. Let me just read you the definition of narcissistic traits and tell me if it rings a bell. Tell me if it either reminds you of your mom and dad or your in laws. Right. Individuals with narcissistic tendencies struggle with empathy. They need constant external validation, which means they need the people around them to be this energy source that makes them feel good about themselves. The biggest narcissistic trait is they view the people in their life as an extension of themselves. So their offspring, their significant other. They don't view their kids or their spouse as their own individual entity, but rather something that exists to fill a purpose for them, to serve them, to make them feel good, to help them function. It's really quite challenging to grow up with caregivers who are giving care for their own purpose or benefit in one way or another. Now, in some family systems, it's more muted, it's not as blatant, but in other family systems, it's quite intense and really apparent that, holy smokes, that is narcissism. I was raised by narcissists. Like I mentioned, a lot of our parents were raised with one purpose and one purpose alone. It was to go abroad. So they had razor sharp tunnel vision focus on their task at hand, and that was to emigrate, to get out of where they currently were living in India. So when you have a mission, it's like, okay, we're locked in. A lot of stuff's going to fall by the wayside. Their parents are going to put a lot of pressure on them. They were parentified themselves. A lot of their parents were illiterate. So they are having to grow up way faster than is developmentally appropriate. So they've been dragged to perform and exceed expectations and harbor so much responsibility. How many of our dads were working full time, absolutely supporting their families, their siblings, their own parents, maybe around the age 16, 17, 18? So they were basically forced to be the head of their household, even if their dads were still around. And this changed their wiring. To be like a machine, you gotta switch some of your humanity off. So some things became out of reach for them, hence the narcissism. Because of what I just mentioned, their feelings of being loved now got heavily fused to performance and achievement. So the more money they're making, the more loved they feel, the more purposeful they feel, more valuable they feel. That's what their family's messaging has been. Your grandparents and your buas and chachas and thais and all of them. So now their wiring has become the more I do, the more I achieve, the more valuable I am, and the more safe I feel because those basic human emotional needs never went away. We still crave and have a hunger for love, safety, acceptance, belonging. That didn't go away. But we just are having to take this long route to get there. And that route has a lot of hazards to it. When we're getting our safety and belonging by performance and achievement and what we can give people, it's transactional now. It's not relational, it's transactional. All of a sudden now, our values start to change. We start to really, really value success and reputation and image. And these are the things that narcissists are most consumed with. They care a lot about prestige and image and reputation and success. So this is where, okay, everything starts clicking. We can start to see why the conversations that were had with us as kids, why the absence, why the seemingly unavailable emotional part to a lot of our parents. It just seemed like they just didn't have it. They couldn't meet us at that depth because something was blocking it. And a lot of what I just mentioned is the reason that it was all blocked off. Okay, let's zoom out even further. Let's just strip it down to the bare basics. Why did our parents have kids? Why did our grandparents have kids? If you have an opportunity, ask, did you guys dream of being parents? Did you guys have visions of this is going to be me with my daughter, this is going to be me with my son? More often than not, they're going to say no. It was just a no-brainer. It was as casual and expected as okay, we're going to get married, we're going to have kids. The way that marriage is defined in South Asian community is that it's just an absolute. It's not a choice. So the way that they define what parenting is very different from in other cultural groups. It's more of a choice, it's a privilege, it's an honor, it's more meaningful. Mainly, it's child-centered, whereas in our community, it's parent-centered. Children exist to fill some purpose or unmet need for the parent. By definition, that's what they view procreation as. They are procreating for the purpose that their offspring is going to make them happy, is going to make them proud, is going to fill all those unchecked boxes from their parents. Whatever their parents couldn't do for them, they're looking to their kids to be able to do for them. Even deeper to that thought, marriage and procreating, having kids, is often seen as a life solution. Oh, you're struggling with addiction? Just get married and have a kid. Oh, you have depression? Kids will fix that. That's what we're wired to do. That's in our duty. That's in our wiring. We're meant to just get married and have a kid. That's the cure-all. That's the antidote. That's the medicine. That's the remedy. But is it, if you really look at it, is it fair to be putting the generations of emotional trauma, generational trauma onto and into the hands of a child to be the fixer and the remedy and the healer? That's a lot of responsibility. It's also a pattern because that's what happened to your parents from their parents' generation and so on and so forth. The can just keeps getting kicked down the road. So we have a generation of wounded individuals who are not fulfilled within themselves because of collectivist culture. We don't value individualistic goals. We value what the group is feeling like. So we're not internally satiated. We're very enmeshed and codependent with our family members. And that just keeps going from generation to generation. Meanwhile, the individuals within the system, within the group, are rather unhappy. That's why the rates of depression and anxiety are so sky high in our community, because how we view familyhood, what the whole point of it all is, flawed. It's based on a false premise. Kids can't be your end all and be all in your happiness. Human life is designed to be self-preserving. So a kid is going to have their own hopes and dreams and aspirations, and it's going to feel counterintuitive to live to make your parent happy. Hence my next point, all the guilt. So because of everything I mentioned, and being collectivist culture, and being heavily focused on reputation, shame and guilt is in excess in our psychology as second gen immigrant children. We have so much shame and guilt because, like I said, it's a flawed system. So we're trying to make them happy. It's directly contradicting what is actually going to make us happy. So we are constantly in this tug of war of wanting to be chasing our own goals and dreams, but doing right by them because we can see how wounded and unhappy they are from their own upbringing. And we're constantly caught between a rock and a hard place. And this just breeds so much shame and guilt. And that is what then transforms and births mental health dysfunction. Shame and guilt turns into the depression, turns into the anxiety, turns into all the distress that we're experiencing. Sprinkle on top the fact that we're very hierarchy based in the South Asian community. There's a strong, visualize a pyramid, patriarchy figure. The dad's at the very top. He calls the shots. Then comes mom. Aunts and uncles might be even above mom, right? Because of patriarchy, they place more value and precedence on the opinions of dad's family members. Grandparents are somewhere up at the top as well. So wherever you have strong authority and power, the shame and guilt is going to get cranked even higher, because now we're being controlled and oppressed and managed, and it's very restrictive. And so that doesn't even create the environment for us to explore a lot of this stuff and figure out what's going on. Why are we struggling? Why does the struggle keep going from generation to generation? Wherever there's strong control, there's not even the luxury of getting to figure it all out, because if you bring it up, if you try to broach the subject or maybe walk your own walk, you're going to be shunned. You're going to be the black sheep. Now you're in trouble. Now you've been disobeying the authority figures. And that is catastrophic for us due to the way we're wired. So all in all, I suppose what I've been finding in my reading and just based on client meetings and all of that is that wherever there's narcissism, not too far away from it is trauma and neglect. And so the antidote to this is to make sure that we are now changing the narrative and we're not looking to our kids to make us happy. So we're being more child focused in our parenting, and also to use tools and resources, healthy coping mechanisms like going to therapy, like getting well informed about all of this. What is intergenerational trauma? How do you release the guilt and shame first and foremost? How do you resource that within yourself? That's the only way things are going to change and things are going to alleviate and get better. What are your thoughts and feelings? Have you guys come across this as well? Maybe even in other social media videos? Has it ever occurred to you that, oh my gosh, maybe it's been so tough to feel happy as an adult because my childhood was abusive after all? There was emotional and psychological abuse going on. Narcissism is a form of abuse. We're not saying they did any of that with ill intent or with awareness, but sometimes we got to call a spade a spade. I'd love to hear your thoughts and feelings. Please leave me a comment. As usual, thank you for watching. See you next time.